Hello, you wonderful people. My name is Gnomestan, and welcome back to another episode of Music Monday. So, my buddy Clayton said that he wanted a new Music Monday, so here you go, man. Little did he know that when he asked me about it, I was already working on one. So, yeah, man, I was already ahead of the game for you, but this one's for you, man. Not really, because you shouldn't be listening to this band. But this time we're going to talk about peeps from the good old state of PA, which is where I'm from. We're going to be talking about the Bloodhound gang. I listened to these guys at an age I probably shouldn't have, when they were mainly popular in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I was still a young Gnomestan at that point, so not good that I was listening to them. But I liked their music then, and I like their music more now because I actually understand what they're saying. To me, the music is just really all about fun, and that's one really cool thing to have about a band, because most bands are, they're trying to say something, which is cool and everything, I appreciate that, but sometimes you just want to listen to music for fun. The lyrics are filled with satire and sexual innuendos out the wazoo, and that really makes for really good music, is what I'm trying to say. They've had some really rad singles come out. Fire, Water, Burn was a really good one. That was actually the first big one, and The Bad Touch is the one that almost everyone knows. I mean, if you don't know that song, just by the name, it's the "You and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals list." I'm not even gonna continue, but yeah, I mean that's actually the main one I remember hearing from, but that's not my favorite one, not my favorite single, not my favorite song. But the next one was another big one that came out was Foxtrot Uniform Charlie Kilo, and that also had a really big impact, not just for me, but other people probably too. So the Bloodhound gang originally formed in 1992. They were known as Band Chamber 8 back then, though. They started as a hip-hop group, but they eventually included other genres into their music, and this is including, but not limited to, funk, metal, and rock. They had a lot of genres put into it, but those are just three ones that I can kind of like pull out and, are evident. So they've actually had a lot of members, but just for the sake of making the video a little bit shorter and a little bit more concise, the ones that were around for most of their career were Jimmy Pop, obviously, guy that helped start the band, Evil Jared, DJ Q-Ball, Lupus Thunder, and then since they haven't had a actual drummer for, they have had several drummers for the existing parts of their career, I'll just name all of them. There's Spanky G, Willie the New Guy, and The Yin. Also, there was one at the beginning as well. I didn't put down his name, though, so I apologize for that. The name Bloodhound Gang actually came from an 80s PBS kids show called 321 Contact. I never watched it, but apparently that was associated with the show. I'm not entirely sure, though. At the beginning of their career, they had a really hard time booking shows. So they actually asked Evil Jared, who wasn't a member at the time, to have the first show at their house. And you let them play, but they gave them beer, cigarettes, and a chance to hand out the first demo in order to play. The first demo was greatly named Just Another Demo. Eventually, though, they were able to play CBGB's in New York City, and that's pretty big, especially because CBGB's was a pretty, influential place in music. The second demo they released, it came out in April of '94, titled "The Original Motion Picture Soundtrack to Hitler's Handicapped Helpers." You can sense the pure satire with that title. They eventually got a record deal with Cheese Factory Records, which resulted in their first EP, Dingleberry Haze. March 1995 came to see the band signing to Columbia Records, and they released their first album, Use Your Fingers. Two members left the band due to disputes with the label. That was Daddy Longlegs, which was a founding member alongside Jimmy Pop and MSG. This was the time that Evil Jared ended up joining the band. About a year later, though, they signed back to Cheese Factory Records, but it was now called Republic Records, to release their second album, One Fierce Beer Coaster. This album had Fire, Water, Burn on it, and it also had a cover of It's Tricky by Run DMC, so that's pretty cool. So the singles for this album was, obviously, Fire, Water, Burn, I Wish I Was Queer So I Could Get Chicks, and Why Is Everybody Always Picking on Me? This album helped break them into the mainstream just because of Fire, Water, Burn. They were able to send this to radio stations and help them get airtime, and that eventually led to them getting so much demand that they actually had to sign to Geffen Records to be able to re-release the album. Eventually, though, it sparked a first real tour for them, so that's really great. Eventually, they released an EP titled One Censored Beard Coaster under Jimmy Pop's own record label that he made, because Geffen wouldn't let them put it on there because of the song Yellow Fever, which had some pretty insane lyrics, at least according to Geffen Records, but, you know, it's what the band was about. They were about, you know, just doing what they wanted to do and joking the way that they wanted to joke, and the way that they joked was using really, I guess, sensitive humor, quote-unquote. Eventually they released their third album, Hooray for Boobies, on October 4th of 1999 in Europe, through Interscope Records. The US didn't get it until February 29th of 2000 due to legal issues. What One Fierce Beer Coaster did for the band, Hooray for Boobies did it even better and officially pushed them into the mainstream. Singles from this album were Along Comes Mary, The Bad Touch, The Ballad of Chasey Lane, Mope, which is the best one, and The Inevitable Return of the Great White Dope, which that is also a really great song. The legal issue stemmed from the song Right Turn Clyde, which the reason why is because they had a parody of the chorus from Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. And then just as a side note, Along Comes Mary was actually a cover of The Association, and that song appeared in the soundtrack to Half Baked, which is also a pretty funny movie, at least if I remember correctly. I haven't watched it in a long time, but it's probably still funny, especially because that's Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle's pretty cool. Whenever I hear or talk about Bloodhound Gang, this is the album I think of the most. It's definitely the most memorable album for them. Eventually, they signed back to Geffen Records to release their other album, Hefty Fine. While the album received poor reviews, it actually sold pretty well. I didn't know that it was received badly until I did the research on it. I actually thought it was pretty good. 3 singles had spawned from this album. You got Foxtrot Uniform Charlie Kilo. Not actually that. It's untis, but I like to do it that way. And No Hard Feelings. One song that I think deserves mention is Ralph Wiggum. The song is funny and well written since it required the band to sift through Simpsons scripts to get the lyrics, because Ralphie being from The Simpsons. Bam Margera of CKY, Jackass, and Viva La Bam fame was featured in a hidden track and in the music video for Foxtrot Uniform Charlie Kilo. The cover photo for the album was going to be different, but Geffen insisted to change. So they got this other guy named Carl Langley on it, and he went under the name Hefty Fine on the official Bloodhound Gang forums, which is how they came up with the name. During the time between the releases of Hefty Fine and their next album, Hard Off, they released 4 singles: Screwing You, On the Beach at Night, Weekend, Altogether Okie, which I think is how it's pronounced, and Chew Toy, but Chew Toy was actually released on Hard Off. They also released a compilation album called Show Us Your Hits in 2010, which had their hits on it. Longtime lead guitarist Lupus Thunder did leave in 2008 though, and Daniel Carter replaced him. 10 years after the release of Hefty Fine, the band eventually released Hard Off. This album had 5 singles on it, which were Chew Toy, American Bitches, Dimes, Clean Up and Aisle Sexy, and Uncool As Me. One cool thing I thought was that Joey Fatone from NSYNC was actually featured on the track Uncool As Me. This album, to me, seems kind of like an extension of Hefty Fine, but it still has its own style. Just as a quick anecdote before I end the episode. Back in... I remember back in middle school, we'd have periodic dances that you could show up to. And I remember that one of my buddies, a few of my buddies and I, we were watching MTV at his house, and we saw the video for Foxtrot Uniform Charlie Kilo, and we're like, wow, that's a really good song. You know, we understood what it meant. We convinced the DJ to be able to play that and untis. And it was really funny because the adults didn't catch on until later on. It was actually, I think it was our 8th grade years when they finally caught on. They were like, yeah, we can't play that anymore. But anyways, that is all for the PA awesome band Bloodhound Gang. And I hope you all enjoyed this episode. If you guys hadn't heard of them, well, I'm glad that you now do. But if you had heard of them, you probably should go listen to them again because they're still as good as they once were. Believe me, it's not just nostalgia. Anyways, I'll catch you guys all the next time you decide to check out a video. And peace out, Girl Scouts.